these people have a will to succeed in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're built different when it comes to that stuff. When you find the guys that want to make it, you can make it in this city.
Yeah, you can.
You know what I mean? It's one of the best
hungry.
cities ever. It's one of the best cities in the world for entrepreneurs, I think.
I think so. I think, one of the things that helped me out a lot when I started my business was just telling people I was open for business.
Right.
And just the act of doing that, just saying, hey, hey, friends, I'm open for business.
Right.
Everybody kind of rallied and supported and said, hey, shit, Justin's open for business. Yeah. Hey, and they called me up. They're like, here's a case. I haven't been able to make anything of it. Maybe you can.
Yeah.
Here, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing this? I mean, they didn't have to do that. But they did it because, we're like a tight community.
Welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm your host, Justin Chopin, business owner, lawyer, dad, world's best husband, traveler, and adventure seeker. On this podcast, we mix business with pleasure. We'll dive into growth strategies, entrepreneurial adventures, the business of law, and prove that business isn't boring. So let's get ready because we are going above the legal limit.
Hey, welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm Justin Chopin. We have Brad Bohannan.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Local legend.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on this show. So for all of our millions of listeners all over the world, Brad you own and operates two establishments.
Well, I just sold spirits on Bourbon.
Okay.
And, so I'm just kind of coming on the backstage of my career where my kids are didn't really show interest in my career. They wanted to follow their mom's footsteps. Okay. So I'm kind of going on the back end of it and taking it a little bit easier. Getting older as I go and doing stuff that's probably a little bit more fun.
Well, what does mom do?
My wife is she's an attorney.
Okay.
And my oldest son starts at Loyola this year, and my other one graduates, and he's going to start. He wants to do 2 years with his brother.
Awesome.
And my wife's the Jefferson Parish council lady.
Okay. Hey, congratulations, because that is great. Now, if someone had asked me, when I started law school, Justin, you can be a lawyer or you could run a bar. I don't know that I would have said go to law. Actually, today, 2024, the day is July 11th. If there are any bar owners out there, I'd rather do that.
Well, everybody,
every grass is always greener.
I mean, everybody always wants to do that, and it takes a special kind of person to run a bar because a lot of them have problems. They put their dick in the cash register. I mean, you're a lawyer. You know how that works. It's one of those kind of things. You get down there and you start drinking all the time, and I mean.
I got the problem with my lawyers here, and I have to tell them 1,000 times, get your dick out of the cash register.
But it's the truth. But it's the truth, and you got to treat it like a business. And I tell my boys, I mean, 3 things can derail you. I mean, drugs, drinking, and women. At this point, you know what I mean. You keep your head on straight, and you can do it.
That is Warren Buffett. He says the 3 ways to go bankrupt. It's the 3 L's. It's liquor, ladies, and leverage.
Yeah, so it's
the same thing.
So I tell my kids that, and I was like, but it's a great way to make money, and it's one of those few careers. I moved down here in 1995. Me and my wife lived in a weekly hotel. I mean, I had $500 to my name. My wife was finishing up undergraduate, and it's one of those careers where there's probably 1 million people do what I went. I went from being the doorman to owning the place.
I love that.
So it's like I came from Missouri. It was a whole different rural community, and I said, man, my work ethic could work good here. I mean,
if you've got a good work ethic. Come to New Orleans because you're going to succeed. My wife is from the Midwest. Her work ethic is insane because she was raised, you worked at the mill. So, that's hard work. They work, 12-hour days. They say midnights up in the Midwest. We would say you work nights. They say you work midnights. I always have to laugh at her. The work ethic is there. We don't have that down here.
They're just wired different. It's just it's a different speed. And you guys got some advantages that are. I mean, you guys talk and smile to everybody. You know what I mean? You guys kiss a lot more babies. But I came down here and I was like, man, there's a lane here for me.
There is.
I graduated and I said I had a degree in criminal justice, and I was like, man, maybe I'll be a New Orleans policeman. I was like, I'll apply for that. But the process took almost a year at that point.
Well, we don't need any police anyway.
But
there's too many.
So I mean, the process was too long, and at that point I figured out how to make money, and I was like, okay, I can do this. I can get my wife through law school, and I mean, we're goal oriented, So that's just how I did it. And I just worked my butt off. I came with some innovative ideas. Worked my way from the bottom to the top, which I was one of my most proudest moments. Where I know there's been millions of people that came down here. I'm gonna come down there and own a place on Bourbon Street with no money.
Yeah.
And I'm probably the only one that's did it.
Yeah, that's right. So, everybody talks about that. That's what the American dream, right?
Yes.
You start, The law firm, I started this law firm, I gave myself a loan. I loaned myself money. So I took money that I already had. It wasn't a whole lot, it was like $2,000. Right. And I took that money and then I put it into a new account. I said, this used to be your money, and this is now the law firm's money. That way I could open a bank account for the law firm and have money in it. Otherwise, it would just be, you would go to the bank and be like, I would like an account, please. I'm like, yes, and were you making any deposits? No, I don't have any money, but I would like the account, please. No, so I took $2,000, I started, I had like 3 cases. That was it. And was it going to work? I have no idea. But I had faith in myself. My wife had faith in me, probably more importantly than the faith I had in myself. My friend said, no, I agree with you, Justin. I think you can do this. And so it's not easy. You bear all the risk all the time. But the reward, I sent an email yesterday. I was like, one of the best rewards of growing a business is seeing some of the decisions I made early on and how they just don't apply to the business now. So we were redoing something. I said, the reason we did this is because in 2015, in my boxers in my back office with a cup of coffee with no clients, I said, wouldn't it be neat if I structured it like this? And now it's 2024, and I'm like, man, we've got to get rid of this. This is so stupid.
Right.
No one even knows why we do it. I know why we do it this way, but no one else does. But still, to start really, I didn't have anything. I didn't have cases. I didn't have any money. All I had was, my wife had just graduated law school, and I was starting this sort of new career. But hey, what is it like in New York? If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. In New Orleans, if you work hard, you can make it.
We did that same thing with my wife with putting her shingle up, and she never really worked for nobody. So she came straight out. I remember we rented a building, and we knew the bar exam was coming out that month, and we found a spot. So we said, we're going to take the risk, and we're going to rent this building. We're going to sign a year lease. And so we're waiting. You're sitting there waiting for the bar exam results and getting on the computer. Back then, it was like the computer's like, So we're watching it, and it goes. We're like, oh shit, there's the bees. Oh shit, we're not on the B list. And then we're like, oh, where's the conditional list? Where's the conditional? And we're like, oh, it's under her maiden name. And so we were like, whoa, we started hugging. And so we thought that was one of our crazy moments where it went from feeling the worst that you could ever feel in the world to the best.
The whole bottom drops out your gut and in your throat. I remember mine. I remember that. I remember sitting there that morning waiting for it to populate. We were worried about my wife, which is ridiculous because she had like a perfect GPA and was like number 3 in the class. But still, I always say there's always that one like really smart person who just blows it.
They usually do worse than the other ones.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
I don't know what happens. They like overcomplicate everything and they fail. But no, so thank God. I don't know.
And I remember putting all our money, all our advertising money. Back then, you did it in the yellow pages.
Yeah.
So the lawyers bought the big yellow page for us. So let's get the biggest one. We're just go all in there. And so you're just waiting for the yellow pages to come out where you can start getting phone calls, and then it was just snowball.
To understand the yellow pages gives such a benefit to understanding marketing in general.
Yes.
And so a lot of times when I'm talking to people here, my staff here, a lot of them are very young.
Yeah.
And so they really don't. They're not part of the yellow book. Generation, the yellow pages generation. And so when I tell them, I said, well, look, you're just a Acme, right? I was like, they're just going.
Because it was like your listing was higher,
right? So I was like, they don't understand that. I was like, you don't know what I'm talking about. They're like, no. I was like, it used to just be Acme was the number 1, and then it was A Acme, and then someone's just like A. They just want to be the first one on the list. You're the first one on the list, so we can't lose this potential client that calls because there's an B Acme who's just waiting for that phone call for you to screw it up. But so I always think understanding yellow pages, understanding the power of the magnet on the refrigerator.
And I remember another thing is when the internet started coming out again, and so that no one was thinking about getting domain names.
Right.
And so I was like, how am I get my? I go nothelawyer.com. Okay, I'll get this. I go this is free. It costs $9.
Right.
I was like. You know how many lawyers have called me asking for that website?
Yeah, you could make it when you retire. When she retired, I was like, get rid of that domain.
I was sitting there going, that was a pretty good move on that one. So
I spent a fortune on my domain. I won't even say what I spent because I'm too embarrassed to say it out loud. But I wanted to corner the Chopin market. Yeah. And so there was another law firm in town who had Chopin.com, belonged to my father, and he left and came here. And so. Just to get that, and everyone kept saying, "Why are you doing this? You don't even need that domain. You could have ChopinLawFirm.com, which we already had. You could have JustinChopin.com. You could have ChopinLaw.com." And I said, I just don't care. I want it.
that, yeah.
And they're like, why? I was like, vanity.
Yeah.
Pure, unadulterated vanity.
Sometimes
I
you
just
need
want
that in
the
your
domain.
life. And sometimes you get yourself in that position where you can do
as
that.
long as you know that that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm not caught up in it. I know
Yeah.
exactly what I'm doing. I just want it.
Yeah, it's great.
So you still have the other two
I have
bars.
Turtle Bay on Decatur Street. It's a 24-hour place. It's legendarily known for its late night action, and it's just been a fun place to have. And
you're working on a movie.
Yeah,
that's about to come out.
We just finished a movie called Dirty Dogs.
I like that story.
Yeah.
So tell us about Dirty Dogs. I know the story, but tell everyone about it.
The U.S. It's crazy. They had a U.S. Supreme Court case, which I've gotten many arguments with lawyers saying it didn't go to the U.S. Supreme Court.
No, it did.
And I was like, it's a U.S. Supreme Court case where it gave a monopoly to one vendor in the French Quarter 50 years ago.
Well, and I learned this in law school, and I remember sitting in law school reading about this, thinking, "Well, this can't be right. This is insane. In what other industry would you allow this?" But then you have to remember, wait a second, we're in Louisiana, where you can do anything with money.
And it was kind of like. And they used the case for a case like Maury v. Dow. Mm-hmm. It was a money order case, and I think sometimes the Supreme Court uses these cases to make some not so rights right. And I think they kind of used this case on it was just some weird legal jumble that was above my pay grade.
Right. So I don't remember what the requirements were, but essentially what happened was that the legislature passes this legislation that makes it so that the only street vendor in all of New Orleans, no matter what, has to start with Lucky and end with Dog, and it has to have like a hot dog shaped car.
Right.
Like, I love a Lucky Dog.
Yeah,
if it's 3 o'clock
nothing
in the
against
morning,
Lucky Dog. If I had a monopoly for 50 years, I'd be rich. I'm going to know what I got. You know what I mean? Like, you can't sit there and you still got to look yourself in the mirror and know
nobody else. You can't get a snowball. You can't get a dat dog. You gotta have to have a Lucky Dog. You can't get. There's no shawarma. There's no pizza. There's if you were really hungry, and it's gotten better, but it used to be. If you were like late at night and you were really hungry in the quarter, there weren't a lot of options. You were eating Dante's pizza.
This may be before your time. Remember the Takey Outie?
No.
Oh, they used to have it was like a. Like something you'd see in a mall, Chinese restaurant and it was like they would be lined out. I'm surprised no one has did that.
Because there's nobody else, right? You can go get like a burger from like Clover Grill or something,
Yes.
I mean, that's really, that's all those places.
But we worked our butts off. So we researched the law and we realized that we're like, we could take this to the Supreme Court again, but I mean, that's going to cost us a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so, but we realized the law, all we had to do was get 4 votes on the city council.
See, it's a little easier.
Yeah, so I got to get 4 votes on the city council to overchange this. So, it's New Orleans. The wheels turn slow. So we started making the movie and kind of going this. I told this to people that it was kind of a crazy idea because I've been thinking about it for like 15 years. I thought the wrong of this. And so we started looking at it, and we're like, this is get the city council, trying to make calls with them, ignore. And then somehow Lee Zurich found out of it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So that kind of opened, and he did some stories for us, and it opened our doors where we could get some interviews. And the councilman, Freddie King, once he got involved, was phenomenal, and he moved it fast, and we were lucky to have him on board, and he saw the wrongness, the disjustice of it.
This is one of those times where like knowledge is power.
Yeah.
People in New Orleans all know about Lucky Dog. Maybe they've had one, maybe they haven't. They haven't been lucky enough to have one. But what they don't know is why it is the only vendor out there. If they knew, if they actually knew the history, if they knew the law behind it, nobody would, in their right mind, would be like, well, that makes perfect sense. And we're like, wait a second,
and all you have to do is like, you'd use it. If I was them, I would use it and say, hey, well, the Supreme Court gave us this. Go to the Supreme Court, and you would think that no one's going to sit there and take it to a different level and do the research.
The best part about the Supreme Court is, if we've learned anything over this last couple of years, is they get to change their mind.
Yes.
They get to go back and say, well, I don't know what the hell we were thinking when we said that.
But, that's part of America's problem.
It was after lunch. We had drinks.
People in America's problem now, they forget that. Times are different. I mean, the city council in New Orleans looks a lot different than it did 50 years ago.
Sure.
I mean, the people that was totally acceptable 50 years ago is not now.
It's not.
And there's sometimes you have to have some right fighters out there to bring it up to par. And
so are you gonna open up like a?
That was part of my thing. I said I never wanted to do it.
You don't want to do it. You just.
I just wanted. It was a project I wanted to do, and I thought that was the right thing to do. I mean, I'm sure I could have, but it's not That's not my DNA.
I get it. But I think it's important for the city. I think it's going to benefit the city. I'm already starting to see new vendors.
I mean, it should be like French Quarter Fest down every day. I mean, think about French Quarter Fest. Why do you go there? The music, all that music you see anytime, you go there to eat and drink and you try everything for $6 and go around. Every street could have something different. I mean,
now you're just going to make the restaurants upset.
But it's all handheld food. Let me tell you something.
Food trucks came out and the restaurants went
There's
crazy.
no food trucks. Everything's got to be in a box, and it's limited. There's exactly the same amount of permits as before. And so that was how we sold it. We said there's no new permits. It's not a monopoly.
Okay.
And no one was trying to get Lucky Dog out of business. We were just trying to make it an even playing field where some people have the opportunity.
Yeah.
That someone in the neighborhood down the street that doesn't look like me or you, or they see a successful person, they might have an opportunity to have a brick and mortar next. I might have a small part in finding the next Emerald Lagasse out of the Callio projects.
That's right.
And that's kind of was my goal on that.
Well, that's why I actually like the food. I mean, I don't necessarily go eat a food truck just because.
Oh, I love food trucks.
I'm like a caveman. I need like a table and I need like air conditioning. I'm a prima donna. But I like it because you are you're giving opportunity to very talented people who maybe lack the funding for a brick and mortar restaurant.
I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Right.
And this is a great way to have a nice cash flow. And I mean, we started working. We've been doing another little project called Eat the Works, and we've been going to all these new restaurants. We went to Lufu's in their kitchen, their house in their kitchen, and they're cooking us this food. And now they have brick and mortars with less than 18 months.
That's wild.
I mean, that's how good. I mean, these people have a will to succeed in New Orleans. Yeah. I mean, and they're built different when it comes to that stuff. When you find the guys that want to make it, you can make it in this city.
Yeah, you can.
You know what I mean? It's one of the best cities ever. It's one of the best cities in the world for entrepreneurs, I think.
I think so. I think, one of the things that helped me out a lot when I started my business was just telling people I was open for business.
Right.
And just the act of doing that, just saying, hey, hey, friends, I'm open for business.
Right.
Everybody kind of rallied and supported and said, hey, shit, Justin's open for business. Yeah. Hey, and they called me up. They're like, here's a case. I don't know. I haven't been able to make anything of it. Maybe you can. Yeah. Here, have you thought about doing this? Have you thought about doing this? I mean, they didn't have to do that, but they did it because, we're like a tight community and it helped. I needed that. I needed that community to kind of push me.
And people are oblivious of how they can help you. They don't have to give you a case. They can just tell their friends and stuff like. And then they'll do stuff. You're like, hey, can you help me with this ticket? You do 10 tickets for them. Then I get a personal injury, and they call someone off the internet. Right. And you're like, oh my god! You're like, welcome to the world of.
And you're not competitors. Like we compete, we are, but we're really not. There's plenty of work to go around.
And the French Quarter is the same way.
There's not too many bars. There might be too many T-shirt shops in the French Quarter, but there aren't too many bars.
But you know what?
Shops,
that fixes itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the commerce fixes itself, and let business do what they do.
That's right.
And it's like that's sometimes we forget that.
So bar ownership, I think, has got to be pretty tough. My director of operation came to us from running a restaurant bar, and so he was running and kind of the operations manager for the Blue Crab.
Oh yeah.
And so one of the reasons I hired him was because I didn't want someone who had come from a law firm. So I wanted somebody who had come from running a service-based business who could think like, okay, what's important? So what's important is customers, right? If you're running a restaurant or a bar and you don't value your customers, your days are limited. They're numbered. You're out. And then right, when profitability, right? So you're running the profit margin in a bar. Well, maybe not in a bar, but profit margins can be slim, right. In some of these establishments, And so I want to maximize our profits as best we can. Once we've determined that customer satisfaction is paramount, and then operations. So you've got your back of the house, you got your front of the house. You have a constant chain of people coming through, and so it was a little bit of a gamble on my part.
Right.
I think the safe bet would have been to hire the person who had spent 10 years at a law firm and kind of knew, but this was something else, and the energy is great. Like he gets it. He immediately understood when he saw all the back house workings of everything we were doing. And he says that it is a lot like running the restaurant. He said it's just the hours are a little bit better. He's not having to work Saturday night.
Yeah, that was the one thing about learning on Bourbon Street. It was kind of it's an improper way because back then it was still kind of when I got here in the '90s, it was still kind of mafiosos.
Yeah,
and it was like one shot. You got them one time. We're going to at least get $100 out of every person that walks out there. If they come back, we could care less.
Yeah.
Because we're New Orleans.
Right.
But guess what?
It's a tourist.
But it's a new town. I mean, we've got competition now. I mean, you got Vegas, you got Nashville, you got South Carolina, you got places that are doing it a lot what we're doing.
Yeah.
And some of them are doing it better. And so now they've kind of, in the last 10 to 15 years, they've kind of changed their mode of operation, which in a good thing for New Orleans, where guess what? We have to do better. The money's just not coming. They're just not coming for New Orleans because we have issues.
If people come, and a lot of our tourists are convention-based, so if people report back, they're like, this was awful, crime was really bad, I got drugged and held up in the back corner of Bourbon, and, Billy got arrested, and whatever. Right. By the way, all these things are happening. Right. And they report up, they're going to say, we did the convention in New Orleans last year, but we got a lot of complaints about it. We're going to go to Atlanta, or we're going to go at the Wynn. We're going to do it at the Wynn in Vegas. Everybody loves Vegas. You're right. The competition is fierce. In New Orleans, I can't just rely on the kitschy, shops and the quaint,
because there's some cities
architecture.
There's some cities doing it good, and we got to challenge our Convention and Visitors Bureau to step it up.
But it starts on an individual level.
By far.
It starts on good service to customers so that they do come, because they come back. I call them my tourism cases. I love my tourism cases for so many reasons. But people come to New Orleans, they get hurt, they go back home, they give us a call. And then the conversation's always the same. They always call and they're like, well, I've never really hired a lawyer before, but this thing happened, but I don't live there, and I already know where it's going. I'm like, listen, New Orleans is a dangerous town.
Right.
Okay, I get it. I have this conversation about once a week. So where were you? What happened?
Yeah.
Let's start, and so I was like, yeah, we can help you with this, but I love my tourism cases, and we do a good job, and they always say the same thing. Well, I love New Orleans. I mean, I don't want to, cause any trouble. Yeah. I love New Orleans. Actually, they don't say we had a great time. The last bit they always say that the real reason they called the lawyer is like, and it ruined my whole trip.
Sure. Yeah.
They always say that. It ruined my whole trip. I spent my trip in the hospital instead of, I was supposed to go on an airboat tour.
Yeah. Do they ever tell you it's not about the money? You're like, then why are you calling me?
I get told that a few times. Yeah. I would say,
I go, well, why are you calling then?
I was like, the only clients, if you're my client, you're listening, don't be offended. Don't be offended. The only clients that will tell me that, where I truly believe them, are my medical malpractice clients. Yeah. My medical malpractice clients will often call because they don't understand what has happened. They're not getting straight answers.
Right.
They know that the result was horrible, and they don't want it to happen to anybody else. Right. So it's like they've lost their loved one because they think the doctor messed up or the hospital messed up, and I just don't want to see this happening to anybody else. After that, there is no other way to compensate someone in the United States without money. I can't unbreak your leg. I can't bring back your loved one. It is all we can do is we can penalize defendants where it hurts. But the turnaround is, or not the turnaround, but I guess that the upside is, industry has never been safer. Oh. Right, working offshore has never been safer. We were talking about bars and restaurants and we're having to put the mat out in front of the door. Mm-hmm. We were laughing about this before we started rolling. And I was telling someone, they didn't realize that. And I said, well, when you leave here, look down at the threshold as you're leaving. You are going to see a mat. And when you go to Walgreens and you go to Walmart and you go to the car dealership, or wherever it is in America where you go and you step into that establishment, I guarantee you 99.99% of the time they're going to have a mat there.
Yeah, it's just like even with this movie, we discovered like the one thing that was bad about having a monopoly was the workers don't have no protection. They're considered independent contractors. They're out there pushing a cart. They're pushing a cart a mile each way, getting no compensation, going back and forth, going there making 16% of what you sell all day.
Is that what it is? They get 16%.
I mean, we sent a guy undercover for a Saturday day, all day with tips and everything. He made $70 in 11 hours. I mean, it's modern day sharecropping.
Yeah,
and it can happen when you have a monopoly.
And you got to buy all the product.
Well,
you're not like, it's not like you're going to get your own hot dogs from Costco.
Yeah, you don't. Right? I mean, it's borderline.
Yeah,
it doesn't pass the smell test of being an independent contractor.
You're buying it from the company.
You have to wear a uniform. You have to. I mean, there's some stuff there that we looked in that that wasn't what our movie was about. But I mean, I felt sorry for some people. I mean, it was sharecropping.
It's hard work, and to not be compensated for it.
To push a cart. I mean, how many times have you saw it at a political event?
Yeah.
The cart there. That didn't get pushed there. That got on a truck and get delivered.
Right.
They have the resources to do it.
Yeah.
Why can't it be done?
Why can't it be done for them?
I mean, it's a different game. It's a hierarchy thing that that was kind of came across and we're like, this is pretty awful.
Well, and then there's no competition. There's no incentive for a better product either.
No.
I got to tell you, it's not necessarily the same product it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Now I was younger and drunker back then, so maybe it was.
I mean, you're saving. You don't have to do good.
You don't have to, right? I mean, there's nothing else for you. If you would like to go, get a reservation, by all means. So there's no incentive to deliver like the really best product ever.
If you lived on an island with 200 women and you're the only guy there, you're going to be
right, like that's
Mr. Caveman. I mean, you're going to. I mean, that's just
most popular guy on the island, depending on the island.
Yeah. You're not going to be the most dignified, and when you're not held, you don't have competition.
Yeah,
makes that stuff happen. Where people get paid a fair living wage.
People got tired of buying CDs. They got tired of being raked over the coals to buy CDs.
Right.
So the market corrected itself.
Right.
And technology allowed that to happen. People got tired of commuting 2 hours to the office in New York. So the market and COVID, but the market allowed it to happen.
Just sped it up.
Technology got there.
COVID didn't do it. It sped it up.
It was already there.
Yeah.
People can be robots.
I mean, just think 10 years ago, if you're some of your lawyers go, well, I'm going to do this from home 4 days a week. You'd be like, no.
I'm still that way.
So. You got to have that FaceTime. I go, that's the one thing I worry about in these kind of industries is that value of being that new lawyer or that new worker and having that FaceTime and having that interaction because, I mean everything's a trade. I mean, you as a lawyer, you learn more probably by watching see, that's a great lawyer. I like the way that guy, I'm watching his hand movements. I'm like, you learn more than that than you almost did in law school. You're like, you guys are showmen. These great personal injury these trial lawyers, you go in there, I go, that's a show.
Yeah, it is.
And my wife goes in there, she goes, it's game time.
Yeah.
She goes, I don't take it personal. And that's the best thing about having a lawyer. Like, that was the difference that I've noticed. My wife's a politician and a lawyer is, the politicians, the lawyers can go there, and you would think they would MF each other right there, hate each other, and then they could go have lunch together.
Right.
They get it.
Yeah.
They get it. It's a job. This is their duty.
This is not.
And this is what the Constitution says we are supposed to do. And then but you get politics. Oh, you can't. You did this. You won 6-1. You won. If you won a trial and it had one guy get against you, you're like, oh, I won. But them, they get it all personal. It's a different ball game. I have noticed that in politics. They want it to be unanimous.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, I want to do the best job I can for my client. And at the end of the day, if I lose a case, that's no good, right?
Yeah.
That's no good. My client's upset. I'm upset. We have money out. They're not being made whole. But all the work that goes up to that, yeah, we're just colleagues.
Right.
I've represented insurance companies. I've represented, offshore, manufacturers, drilling companies. We've done all sorts of banks and, lenders.
Mm-hmm.
And then I represent people now, right? And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. We always get frustrated when we see these other lawyers who everything is, they can't possibly see it your way. They can't possibly understand that they have holes in their case.
Right.
And all they want to do is tell you you're wrong.
No responsibility for any of their part.
Right. And so I was like, listen, it's not always 100%. Right. Life is just not that simple. I know the holes in my case.
Right.
And I know you have holes in your case. But let's work together. We'll just let's figure out kind of maybe where maybe where we line up. And some lawyers get it, and then some lawyers just can't. They can't get it. They're like, no, you're wrong. I'm like, okay. I'm wrong. I guess I'll just pack up all my shit and leave. I'll just close up the firm and go home. And
what do they say? You get your client as they come, or something?
Yeah, that's it. You get your client as they come. I say that a lot. You get a nice little old lady, and she just gets a tap on the bumper, but she's, we call it's like an eggshell doctrine, right? So you get your client as you come. I'm like, well, and they're like, well, all that's pre-existing. She's old. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but she wasn't, crippled before. You just happen to hit the wrong person. If you'd hit a kid, you'd be fine.
We got to get my wife in here. She does family law. You want to do something where no matter what you do, you're not gonna. No, either side leaves unhappy. You're like, she goes. let's just mediate this. We can get this done. We can get it done in a day, and I can get you within 10% of where you're going to be, and there's no headaches. And they'll end up fighting over a couch, and I'm like, she's like, I tell them I try. She goes,
so when I started the firm, that was one of the ways I started. Was because I was at that age. I was, my mid-30s, and everybody needs a divorce in the mid-30s, right? So you can find a divorce. Just start asking around, like, hey, you want a divorce? And they were like, I kind of do. I'm like, well, come on in here. Let's do this. Let's make this official. And so I started about 25% of my practice in those first 3 years was domestic. I hated it so much. I remember my first, and I remember my last. And I remember at the end, I was like, and we're never going to do it again. And every now and then, someone, one of the lawyers here, we got 10 lawyers now, someone will be like, hey, Justin, thinking about taking on this domestic case. And I'll be like, you can do it if you want, but don't come talk to me about it, and don't think I'm going to cover you for it. It's all on you, pal, because I'm not doing it. But I was, our rule back then was this, like, I will get you a divorce, but I'm not going to fight over. I'm not fighting over a sofa. Right. Okay, I'm not going to fight over your silverware. So if you and your spouse can't figure that out, I'm not the lawyer for you. There, I will give you a list of lawyers to go talk to, but I'm not doing that. And that worked for a while, but then slowly I found myself doing these custody cases, and that's when it just tanked. And that's when I was like, you know what, I can't do this. This is just not for me.
You get tied up in it, and like,
because then then you're not talking about money. Now you're talking about kids.
Or and then it's personal. Like, she came with his girlfriend. He came with his girlfriend and dropped him off, and he's 5 minutes late. But did he drop him?
I mean, drop the kid
it's
off,
just like it's life.
It was the whole kid, right? It wasn't missing anything.
Yeah,
the whole one.
I watch her get tormented with that. She holds on to it pretty well, though.
So how many? So between the two bars that you have, how many employees do you have to oversee?
Well, we had, I think, 78 before, but now now it's down to about 35. So we just, because we're selling off, but I'm going to keep that one forever. And I own that building, so it's like, it's French Quarter property. So it's like one of those things, and it's just a little side hustle. It cash flows a lot of things. These other side projects, some of the right fighting missions that we're going to do. And
how much do you find yourself still in the business of it?
I am so lucky, man. My partner, I have a partner, and he handles almost 95% of everything. And so
that's good.
So I'd come in and eat.
Yeah, right.
And I stay out of the way, and I came up where everybody was the boss, and so I knew there has to be one boss.
Yeah, and
if he says this how it goes, we're equal partners, but guess what? He's the boss.
Well, and he's seeing all the issues,
and we've been partners for 15 years now. Never got to fight. It just kind of worked out well.
Yeah. I have partners here, but we always we get in fights, but not big ones. But in the end, there has to be one person who's going to make the decisions on some of these things. And I manage all these different teams, and each team kind of has like their own way of doing things. And so I can't have a situation where it's like, well, on my team, I want this and this. I'm like, guys, we have to deliver a consistent result. Right. And the only way we're going to do that is by making some of these things consistent. Right. And so I hear you, but I really think you need to do it the way he's doing it. Right. So it's interesting. Starting the business, you wear every hat. Right. I was the tech guy. I built all the systems out, I guess. I was intake. Right. I was the lawyer. I had to do that part. I was the bookkeeper. I'm very, very bad bookkeeper. And slowly and surely, I was the paralegal. I was the secretary. I was the typist. We've hired and grown, and it's like it's always hard, but sometimes you just got to take the hat off, right?
How much has law changed for you over the years? Like, has the personal injuries been different with like the tort reform laws and stuff like that? How has that affected you?
Well, so the thing about law is it's always changing, right? The body of law, whether it's, you're a common law state and you're working with jurisprudence, or you're a civil law state like Louisiana and they're passing new statutes, or the code, it's always evolving and changing. Interpretation is always different. Supreme Court is always changing their mind. They're always saying, I know we said this, but I didn't mean it like that. You took it too far. We're no. So now we're changing our mind. So that part is the same. What has changed in the practice is the interplay of technology, the younger generation of consumers. Right. So all of these things, the way the industry has staff. When I first started practicing, we dictated, and we had typists, and we had secretaries, and all that's obsolete. They're gone. I don't think in the next 10 years you're not even going to hear the word secretary.
Right.
If you said typist around here, no one would even know what you're talking
Right.
about. And so the technology and the staff and everything, the way that you staff the cases is different. For tort reform, I always think lawyers, you're never really going to change. You can pass all the laws you want. We are going to find a way.
Right.
We're going to find a way to make sure that insurance companies are protecting injured people.
Right.
You're never going to be able to legislate around that. But what the problem you have is when you have non-lawyers trying to pass legislation, not understanding the inner workings of the judicial system. Mm-hmm. And so you can see these guys pass this stuff, and you're thinking, they don't even know what they're talking about.
And they're selling it as they're taking away it's like, to me, I'm watching, I go, every time they sell it, they say the insurance rates are going to go down and all this stuff, and all they're doing is taking the client, the people's rights away.
Yeah, and guess what? I don't know about you guys, but my insurance rates went up this year. They didn't go down.
Right.
They went up, and I just saw a headline today saying that insurance rates are going to go up again. Mm. So it's amazing to me that some of these guys in Baton Rouge, when you ask them, well, where did you come up with the criteria to pass this legislation?
From the insurance company.
Such that, such that, the premiums would go down. They're like, well, what I did was I called the insurance company, and I said, what would we have to do to make our premiums go down? And the insurance company said, get out a pen and paper. I'm going to tell you, you do these things. And they just listen. Like, well, gosh, they said that they would. Yeah. It's amazing to me. It is amazing to me that people can be that naive. So you can pass all the tort reform you want. If you make me, I'll put it in front of a jury every time. Like, you are not going to win this fight. Insurance companies make money by collecting premiums and not paying out.
Right.
That's the only way to make the money. And until you can internalize that, conceptualize that, and understand that the entire industry is premised on not paying out for injuries, you'll never see the forest for the trees.
Right. Are they as broke as they say they are, you think? Or is it just that's just the front?
No, it's record profits. They've never made this much money in the history of Earth.
I mean, it's like a front.
They're wealthier now than they ever have been.
That's crazy.
So meanwhile, the average person has never been broker than they have been. But all right. Well, I'm getting this in the background, which means I've gone on too long. I appreciate you coming on. It was great meeting you. Definitely give yourself a plug for this movie.
We got Dirty Dogs, the movie coming out. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Hopefully, a premiere at the New Orleans Film Festival.
I can't wait to see it. This is one of those movies I am going to see. So we had kids in 2016. We just had one, right? But then we had another one. They you don't just get one. God just keeps giving them to you. And so someone says, well, have you seen this movie? Have you seen that movie? And I always say no. And they're like, why, you don't like movies? I say, no, I love movies. I have children, and they won't let me go see movies. The last movie I saw was Frozen 2, for Christ's sakes. But this one I do want to see, because when I saw that, I think it's fascinating. And I have been following what's going on in New Orleans about this, and I think you're doing the Lord's work there.
So. Well, we appreciate it, and we're happy with our outcome so far.
Yeah.
And it's been
it's going to be good.
Project.
This is a good thing for all of New Orleans.
I think so too. I think we're going to be able to change 20 families' lives by putting them into business.
At least, and the people working.
Yes.
And the tourism,
and hopefully get some wages up. And
yes,
I think it'll put a better light on New Orleans.
I think so too. I agree. Well, hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So it's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for joining me today on Above the Legal Limit. If you enjoyed the show and you want to hear more about business and law, hit that subscribe button. If you didn't like the show, keep it to yourself. Remember, there's no limit to what we can achieve. We will see you next week. Until then, even though we're above the legal limit, let's drive safely. Cheers, everyone.